All right, I want to tell you a story, and I have a feeling it's going to sound, well, a little too familiar. It's a story about failure, frustration, and a single powerful secret that completely flipped the script.
He failed. Just think about that word for a second. It can feel like the absolute end of the road, right? And for the student in this story, it wasn't a one-time thing. Oh no, it happened again and again. We're talking 5 separate times. You can imagine what people were starting to think, that maybe he just wasn't cut out for it. But listen, this is not a story about giving up. It's about how one tiny, almost invisible change turned absolutely everything around. And that's exactly what we're going to break down. So first things first, we got to understand the struggle, because you can't find the right solution until you really understand the real problem.
Now, here's the thing that gets me. This student wasn't lazy, not at all. In fact, he was doing everything right, or so he thought. He was studying every single day, never missed a class, and would just pour hours into rereading his notes. He really believed that if you just worked harder, it would all click. And yet, despite all of that effort, the result was always the same. He'd walk into the exam, sit down, open the test booklet, and nothing. His mind would just go completely blank. Poof. All those hours he spent studying, gone, just vanished into thin air. And let me ask you, have you ever felt that? That horrible, sinking feeling when you know you studied, you know you've seen the material, but you just can't pull it out of your brain when it actually matters? If that sounds familiar, then this story is definitely for you. This brings us right to the heart of the issue. There was this hidden mistake, something that was quietly sabotaging all of his hard work from the very beginning. So here is the crucial point. The problem was never, ever a lack of effort. He was working hard enough, for sure. The problem was how he was studying. His method was just fundamentally flawed. This all connects back to this scientific concept called the forgetting curve. It was discovered by a guy named Hermann Ebbinghaus, and it shows that our brains are literally designed to forget things over time unless we make a specific effort to retrieve that information. Our student's study method was actually fighting his brain's natural programming, not working with it. And this just shows the difference so perfectly. His flawed method was passive reading, just highlighting and rereading notes and textbooks. This creates an illusion. The material starts to feel familiar, but feeling familiar is not the same as actually knowing it. The better way is active recall. This is where you force your brain to actually retrieve the information. That little bit of struggle is what builds strong, lasting memories. So, the big shift from one method to the other came from a single, powerful moment. It wasn't a new book or some long lecture. Nope, it was just a simple question. One day, his teacher saw him passively reading and just walked over and asked, "Can you explain what you just studied without looking at the book?" And in that moment of silence, when he realized he couldn't do it, everything just clicked into place. He'd spent hours looking at the words, but he couldn't actually explain the core ideas. That was the wake-up call. The illusion of familiarity was shattered. So from that one realization, he made 3 really simple but incredibly powerful changes to his entire study routine. These are the 3 pillars of his new method: active recall, spaced revision, and the teach-to-learn technique. So let's see how each one actually works. All right, first up, active recall. He completely changed his process. So instead of just rereading a chapter, he'd read it once, close the book, and then try to write down or just say out loud everything he could remember. He was forcing his brain to do the work, to pull that information from his memory. Second, he started using spaced revision to fight back against that forgetting curve we talked about. So instead of cramming all night, he'd review the material in these increasing intervals, like a quick 10-minute review the next day, and then maybe another 5-minute review a week later. These short, spaced-out sessions were way more effective than one long, painful one. And third, he started teaching. He would find a friend and try to explain the concepts he was learning in the simplest terms possible. This method, it's often called the Feynman technique, is like the ultimate test of whether you understand something. Because if you can't explain it simply, you don't really get it. So what happened after he put all these changes into practice? Well, the result was nothing short of a complete transformation. He sat down for his next exam, but this time, when he looked at the questions, his mind wasn't blank. For the very first time, he could recall the information clearly and confidently. It was all there. I mean, the difference was just night and day. Before, he had failed 5 times in a row and was just full of anxiety and self-doubt. Afterwards, he passed with flying colors. And, maybe more importantly, he finally felt like he was in control of his own learning. And the core message from his whole journey is this: failure is not a reflection of how smart you are or what you're capable of. More often than not, it's just a sign that you're using the wrong method. So, if any part of this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt that same frustration, I'll leave you with this final thought. What if you just tried these 3 changes: active recall, spaced revision, and teaching to learn for just 1 week? Just 7 days. What do you think might change for you?